We're joined on the phone line and on Zoom by our guest who will help us understand the issues as we travel along. Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante is Director Advocacy and Policy Engagement of the Center for Democratic Development (CDD). Also joining us will be Michael Boidi, is the fundraiser manager, Ghana Integrity Initiative, and Mr. Vitus Azeem is an anti-corruption campaigner. Let's go to Dr. Pumpuni Asante, who joins us now on Zoom. Doc, good morning. Thank you very much for your time. How are you? Dr. Asante, good morning. How are you? Doc, you have to unmute yourself so we can hear you. Doc, good morning. How are you? Okay. Doc, good morning. Happy New Year. Okay. Well, Mr. Vitus Azeem is also joining us on the phone line. Mr. Azeem, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm fine. How about you?
I am greater than Accra. Good to hear from you once again.
Thank you.
Corruption. Ghana, Abre. Is Ghana tired, Mr. Azeem?
Ghana is not only tired, Ghana is suffering under the burden of corruption.
What are we not doing right? For the fourth time running, we have been stagnated on the 43rd mark on the index, and that's not looking good on us. What are we not doing right?
We are promoting corruption. We are not making any effort to stop it. That's why we are stagnating. Well, in fact, I even think that the score should have been lower than 43. Because when you read in the papers, when you listen to TV, and you hear the scandals that are going on, that we just talk about in a week and then we forget about it. No action is taken. Last week, it was the SML. This week is this AFCON. A huge budget that has no base. Why should Zambia present a budget of $2.1 million
right,
and Ghana present a budget of $8.5 million? When we don't even need to fly, we just can drive, go in the bus across to Abre. So these are the problems that we are not only not fighting corruption, we are encouraging and promoting corruption. And that's why we should have even scored less than 43.
I see. Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante is joining us on the other phone line. Doc, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Good morning to your listeners and viewers.
Great. Now, Mr. Azeem believes that we should have dipped further on the index and not have been stagnated on the 43rd mark because we are encouraging corruption. Do you agree?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the perception numbers, of course, just gives you some sense of whether you are making any progress or not. The fact that we stagnated for the last 4 years or so, it's itself telling. Because, I mean, if you are not making any progress at all, you're not moving, you are basically stagnant. In real terms, that could mean a whole host of things. But we have seen the kind of impunity that, it's just on every day. I mean, these days you don't have to look too far. There seems to be almost an acceptance, of this kind of behavior by public servants. There's a lack of accountability everywhere, and people are just acting with a certain level of impunity. And so, I mean, yes, it will show, but of course these are estimates based, basically of the pulse of people in terms of how the corruption is going.
Right.
So maybe in a sense it's been bad for all this while, and people have got to the point where they don't see that nothing has changed.
Ms. Azeem, I'll bring you into the conversation now and ask you, but we have state institutions that are clothed with the power to fight corruption. Are they doing enough, or are they as powerless as people think they are?
They are not doing enough, and from what they are saying, they are trying to find excuses for not doing enough. You see, you have been given powers and given resources to do your work. No matter how limited resources are, you should do your bit. Especially when the government has raised our expectations that this is what it's doing, is giving you more resources, is setting up new, the OSP passed the right to information law. So why is it that you see that institutions are not willing to give information to you, and you cannot use your powers, the right to information law, to enforce, to insist that you get information you need for your investigation. And you tend to say that those who make the allegations should provide the evidence. I am an honored citizen. Right. I have just come to say, in my office, this guy has written a check that shouldn't have been written.
Right.
It's a document. What prevents you from going to look for that check either at the source or at the end of the day where the money was taken at the bank? People have signed that check. Why should I, the outside person that got that information, be asked to provide the evidence when I've only hinted you that this is a fishy deal? Take steps to check it. So they are not doing enough. They are not meeting our expectations. We agree that they have some challenges, but you should work within your constraints.
So for example, the Iyoko boss, COP Tiwa Adudankwa, has said that, well, Iyoko could have done better in the SML deal, and that they acknowledge that they could have done better, they admit. Is that enough to just say, we admit, and so that's it?
No. If you admit that could have done better and you are not doing better, it means that you don't need to exist, need to be at that place. You know that you could have done better. What are the things that you did not do so that you do them? So coming from her that, we don't provide evidence, coming from the chief of staff that we don't provide evidence, what all the powers in this country are vested in the presidency.
Right.
And you are the chief of staff. You have a hand in appointing the heads of these institutions. What are you doing about it? That's why I say we are not fighting corruption. We are rather promoting corruption. We are not interested in fighting corruption. I even give the example of the AFCON and the SML, but I forgot to mention the primaries at the weekend.
Right.
Clearly, people were demanding or receiving money, TV sets, all those things, and nobody, the authorities are saying nothing about it.
Well, but there's also the argument that, for example, the last time MP for Asante North, the Honorable Apia Kubi, had made a similar allegation, the OSP invited him to assist with investigations, and he was uncooperative. So how does the OSP make progress if the person who alleged is not able to support or even avail himself, to support the investigation? How does anybody get prosecuted or punished for wrongdoing?
Two things. The OSP, I think, has powers to compel the honorable member to appear before him and provide evidence on oath. But the other side of it is that there are other lines that you can use to do the investigation, even if this person did not cooperate. You see, the OSP is supposed to be a specialized institution with experts that should be able to have ways of investigation. Just one key witness refusing to give evidence should not be enough to say that because of that you cannot do your work. There are other pointers that you need to follow. I'm not an expert, but at least there are pointers that you need to follow, and then corner the person, and you'll be able to get the information.
See, Dr. Asante, I'll bring you in. So we saw just a few days ago the Afrobarometer from your quarters. It doesn't look like we're doing any better because we keep going down and down and down. What can we do to improve our lot? But first, let's look at the Afrobarometer. I mean, really, are you satisfied with the situation as it is, as we find ourselves, by what your research has proven?
Well, I think it's not just the Afrobarometer. There are many other surveys that show that we are not doing well. We're not doing well on government effectiveness measures, And this has been going on for almost a decade and more now. So we really, as a country, are in a real serious state because, up until in the sort of 2010, 2013, after oil, there was this sense that we're going to make some progress, but it looks like we have gone completely the opposite direction, and all the rhetoric and the promises that were made, election after election, doesn't look like we really want to fight corruption. I think for me, when I look at the situation, it's really about what we have not done on the things that enable corruption in the country. So, Daniel Kaufman, this governor's expert, World Bank guy for many years, talk about fighting corruption by not fighting corruption, in the sense that you have to look at the environment that enables corruption, that conduces corruption, in a way to actually deal with corruption itself. And as Vitus was mentioning, if you take something like the right information law, if you look at the behavior of state institutions, for something sometimes as basic as the FML, a revenue assurances agreement, and there's all kinds of justifications why such a basic document should not be made available. Something that is generating almost $100 million, in an austerity period and under an IMF program. There should be a public interest to make these things available and transparent. So we are finding, or we are exposing even corrupt activities right after the fact.
Right.
When all these transactions have been made and agreed and signed, and even trying to unravel them becomes so complex and becomes a cost to us. And so we really need to pay attention to all the elements that is making it easy for corruption to thrive. We talked about the vote buying spectacle that's going on.
Treating.
If we don't serve a deterrent effect, if some people are not arrested and jailed and prosecuted, everybody is just going to do it, right? And going to an election season, the right message has to be sent. And it's not just a giver of the money, but the person who is also receiving it and boasting about it.
Right.
So for me, all these conditions, how the courts treat, corruption cases, if our judges are not up to scratch in terms of the laws that they are interpreting, then we have to have more training so that they understand it. Otherwise, then it sends the wrong message, to those who are adventurous and looking at it and saying, oh, well, there's not going to be any consequences, and therefore I should also go ahead. For me, all these components, the Code of Conduct for Public Officers Bill that's still in Parliament that have not been passed,
right,
asset declaration, these are the things that prevent the corruption, makes it harder for the corruption to happen. And of course, when people are caught in the act or they're being investigated and so on, we want to see that the punishment actually is imposed. But there's a lot that can be done on the conditions that are enabling corruption. And currently, all of the things that we have done, all the things that we put in place, is not biting enough to stop or stymie, the flow of corruption.
Mr. Azeem, I'll bring you in. So, at the last count, a lady who is supposed to have received some money by way of vote buying indicated that if Mr. Kisejapende, special prosecutor, wants to arrest people, then he has to arrest the entire nation, because at every election, everybody collects something, or at almost everybody collects something. Every delegate receives something. So it will be a lost fight, because she questioned the capacity of our prisons and whether or not we have the space to even deal with anything of that sort. Is that a defeatist approach for us to begin with?
Yes, that's the defeatist approach. Because when you pick a few people, especially the givers, those who are distributing the money, you can accuse them of at least 2 crimes. Accusing them, giving them money and also illegally taking those monies. If you are able to investigate and establish those 2 issues and prosecute them on those 2 crimes, it will be a lesson to the rest of the people. Then you also educate the public to understand that it is wrong for them to demand and receive money by just going to thumbprint your ballot paper. So you cannot just say because of that, then we should just allow it to happen. There should be ways of dealing with it. And that's why I said that these institutions are experts. They know how to go about their work. And if they are determined, if they are serious about carrying out their work, they should be able to deal with the most serious issues, not just to take everybody and go and be in prison. No, that's not what we're saying. But you should be able to select, screen the most serious cases and deal with them as a lesson to the rest of society.
I see. Dr. Asante, so the last time you published your corruption perception index, the Afro Barometer, the Ghana police was not happy with you. This time around, for the 2021-2023 perceived corruption in key public institutions, you asked respondents, how many of the following people do you think are involved in corruption, or haven't you heard enough about them to say? The question about parliament was not asked in Burkina Faso, Guinea, Sudan, and Tunisia. Captured in 39 countries. Police is still leading the pack. The last time the IGP Dampare disagreed with you, followed closely by tax officials, civil servants, officials in the presidency, members of parliament, business executives, judges and magistrates, local government councillors, non-government organizations, governmental organizations, traditional leaders, and religious leaders. Why does the police continue to lead in the pack of institutions of state that are corrupt?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, so maybe just in terms of accuracy. So the last round of the Afro Barometer was in, I think the Ghana one would have been in 2022, which is round 9.
Mm-hmm.
The round 10 survey would happen this year, and we even get a better perspective from citizens on the incidence of corruption. As for the police situation, that we've had opportunities to engage with police, we've given them copious information on different analysis of why the police continue to be in the lead. I think it's just the interaction. Most people, whether they are sitting in a trotro or driving their private cars, engage the police often, and they always either see police officer, maybe taking some money to let somebody go, or those kinds of things. So I think is the proximity of police officers to citizens in across Ghana, and that's why in most places the police always come up. It's not only a Ghana issue, but it's important to note that if you look at the list of people perceived to be corrupt, these are the same group of people who are supposed to also keep law and order. Right? They are supposed to be the ones that prevent corruption, enforce the rules so that there is no corruption.
Right.
So the integrity among public officers, and particularly public officers that safeguard the rule of law, is a big issue. Whether it's judges, whether it's MPs, whether it's political officers at the presidency, local government councillors, and all those people who are entrusted with the responsibility to prevent corruption and enforce the law. And if they are all perceived to be corrupt, then it creates a problem for dealing with corruption itself. So the integrity systems within those institutions is something that we have to deal with. I am waiting for a day that, bribery on the streets of Accra or any city or town in Ghana will be a thing of the past, that we can probably see and say that, we have seen a huge change in the behavior of the police on the street. That sense a clear message that things are changing, that people are being taken on, that we are tackling corruption. At the CPI event, for instance, I said, for some time we feel overwhelmed that we are, there's corruption everywhere, we don't know what to do and all of that stuff. There are things that we know. People either interacting, going to collect their license, going to hospital, going to access visa. If for even we were to deploy undercover agents to Raise Hospital or to Kolebu Hospital, I'm telling you that within 1-2 weeks, that all that corruption there will stop. And then, those who are really determined to engage in corruption, they will have to find other ways. But there are ways in which we can begin to signal to the public that we are trying to tackle, we're trying to change the narrative around corruption. And sometimes we don't seem to be able to show that innovation or boldness, to say, under my watch, this thing will come to an end.
So,
and then really can see change.
So, Doc, IGP Dampare in 2022 said that the institution he leads is suffering pervasive public stereotypity. He also went ahead to, in a 5-pager, criticize the methodology of the survey and called it problematic. And he says that based on that, he will reject the tag of being the most corrupt institution in the country. I mean, that's an emphatic statement from the chief of police in the country called Ghana. He's questioning methodology. He says there's stereotypity.
As for the Apple barometer methodology, they tried and tested since 1999. And it's used in the worldwide governance indicators of the World Bank, the Mo Ibrahim Index. So that methodology is solid. Even the Ghana Statistical Service, confirms that. So I don't think that is the issue. I think the issue about corruption of the police is something that it's important for the IGP and the police hierarchy to understand. The reasons why people will say the police are, and when we say the police always comes up, it's just that more people are saying that the police are corrupt. It doesn't mean that their corruption in terms of value is more than what might be the case in some grand corruption, just one single grand corruption. So it's not comparative that way. But it does raise questions about integrity of police officers. And maybe they might be collecting 1 cedi, 2 cedi, 5 cedis, and 10 cedis, and all of those things. But those things, have an imprint on the public, public psyche. So it might be symbolic that, an IGP might look at that and say, we need to change this perception of the police. Because whether you like it or not, that's what the people believe and are experiencing. So you have to now find a way of correcting that perception. So I mean, as I said, these are issues that people contest all the time, but it's always good to know at least what the people are thinking or what the people are perceiving to be the case, so that you can find ways to address it.
Great. Mr. Azeem, I'll bring you in. So where do we turn? Do we look at the adults, or should we go back to the children in the schools and start educating them about corruption, how to prevent it, how to report it? Because you find that in our society, you will see somebody doing something wrong, and then we say, oh, what you are doing, if they catch you, you will see. Intrinsically, we are not built to say, stop what you are doing, it is wrong. But we say, if they catch you, the question is, who will catch you? And should we be encouraging our children right from the get-go to be, shaping their minds in that direction to call out people who are doing the wrong thing?
I think that's what the late President Kwame Nkrumah tried to do with his young pioneers. Unfortunately, that has not worked. So, you see, fighting corruption requires a holistic approach. So it's not like saying that let's target the adults or let's target the youth or the children. We must target the entire society. because the entire society is engulfed by corruption. You go to primary school, children wanting to be school prefects, come with toffee to give to their colleagues to vote for them. At that level, they find it necessary to buy votes. Even with toffee, it doesn't matter. But the fact that they are buying votes at that level, how would they be convinced that when the adults are buying votes with cash, it is wrong? So we need to tackle the children at that level. But that doesn't mean that we should forget about the adults, because what the adults do is more damaging than what the children are doing today. When you take state resources and go and buy votes, the cost to the state is the economic crisis that we are facing now. The cost to the state is the lack of drugs in the hospitals. The cost to the state is the poor roads that we have to ply every day. So what the adults are doing is more damaging than what the children are doing. But that doesn't mean that we should allow the children to grow up thinking that there's nothing wrong with what they are doing. We need to try to educate them. But it must start from the parents. Who gives the children the money to go and to buy toffee and go and bribe their children to vote for them? At that level, what benefit is there for you to become an SP or a class prefect? So the parents should start by educating their children that, look, it's wrong for you to do this. If your colleagues see that you are okay, you can manage the position of school prefect, they will vote for you. Otherwise, forget about it.
I see.
When you do that, then they'll grow up seeing it as wrong. But if you don't do that, then when they sit down and watch their television and they say you are corrupt, your children and your wife are watching, they don't even see anything wrong. So that's how I look at it.
I see. Dr. Asante, can we ever fight corruption on an empty stomach? People generally say they don't have the wherewithal. People generally say they are hungry. The economic situation is not getting any better. And you expect these same citizens to stand up and say, this is wrong. I won't accept this enticement or this inducement because it is corrupt or amounts to corruption. Can we ever fight corruption on an empty stomach?
I think, there's always a case to be made about the conditions of service for public servants and all that. We've talked about that, ad infinitum. But the issue is really about, our values. Because, you see, even the logic of it, those people who are taking money, so that they can sell their boats and all of those things. They take that money, they'll go and spend it, and they'll be hungry again. It's not sustainable. That kind of behavior, that kind of corrupt behavior, it's not sustainable for anybody. Because what you need is a system where the public resources that come are applied for those purposes, so that you can create an environment where people can have jobs, can have stable economy, can have good infrastructure, good health, and good quality education. Those are the things that are sustainable. What they are doing, they are just enabling a very few people to basically amass wealth for themselves and their families. And then the public is completely sacrificed. And that's everybody else. So the pittance and the crumbs that they will give as a way for you to enable them amass that wealth will not change anybody's circumstance. They'll be hungry again. So I don't think that is, and just from a value point of view, sort of relying on corrupt or illicit activities to promote your welfare or to protect your welfare. It's not something that, you want your children to participate in. So I really think that those kinds of arguments is just to rationalize and make corruption feel good. Corruption feel all right for people. But everybody knows in their inside that kind of behavior is not good. And it destroys society. It destroys people's livelihoods and so on. So I don't think it's an argument that we should sustain. And if people do that, we should counter and raise the fallacy. That, for me, is very obvious.
Dr. Asante, I thank you very much indeed for your time. He's the Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement, CDD. Thank you. Mr. Azeem, you have the final word on this one. Can we fight corruption on an empty stomach?
You see, when you ask that question, it's like saying, is it okay for a young man who has not eaten the whole day to pick up a gun, come and shoot you and take your money and go? It's definitely not okay. We should strive to fight corruption even on the empty stomach. Because at the end of the day, if corruption is curbed, then we all benefit. And I give the example of the drugs in the hospitals, schools for children to go to, good roads for us to ride. So, you see, sometimes you have to sacrifice to get something good. So just go to war and get killed because they are defending their country. So we should not say that we cannot fight corruption on an empty stomach. We have to strive to fight corruption even on an empty stomach.
Thank you very much indeed for your time, Mr. Vitus. Azeem is an anti-corruption campaigner. We're grateful that you could join us this morning.
Had been handed over to your office. Can you confirm receipt of the case?
Yes, I confirm that.
Okay.
So that is all.
But do you have any preliminary comment on it?
I have that, and we are now reviewing to at the appropriate time we'll speak about it.
Before that, though, before the OSP took the case up, would you say that it was something that had come to your attention?
I don't know what is on the docket, so I'm not well briefed on that, so I don't want to make any comment on it until we review and then we'll look at it. Maybe at the appropriate time we'll speak to you.
That's excellent. But in the midst of that, you also know that the Fourth Estate, Manasseh, SML and all of that, do you have any information on that?
No, I don't.
Okay, but is this something that you were interested in taking it up before Manasseh came up with it?
You see, I don't talk about things that I'm not well briefed. If you want to talk about any other things, fine, but not on that. Because we've just, even before, the most important thing is that he has handed over, but I don't have any more thing to add.
I mean, you have a very important role as the executive director of IOCO. Listening to the figures on corruption and all of that, aren't you concerned as an institution that is supposed to be investigating crime and all these issues?
Every Ghanaian is concerned. You are concerned. I am also concerned. Everybody should be concerned. And what do we have to do? We must all put our hands together and we must fight whatever is fighting us. That is what I can say. But the point is that, like OSP said, if we really need to fight it, then everybody must fight it. I have somebody who asked me for something, some money, some support to pay the school fees or something. Then after that, the moment I said I will help, she called me back to say I shouldn't put it on her Momo because he's owing MTN. Can you imagine? And I did. So these are some of the things, small things that we think they don't matter. But they do. It starts from small things and it becomes big. So everybody to have a change of attitude, mindset, that this is where we are. And this is where we want to go. And we must all play a role in the fight against corruption. One person cannot do it, and it's not about leadership. It's about everybody playing a role. Whatever is expected of you, you do it. Whatever is expected of me, I do it. Whatever is expected of institution, we do that. But at the end of the day, one thing that we should always remember is that when you are prosecuting corruption, it's not about what you think. It is about the evidence that you have. If you don't have evidence, you don't have a case. And that is what the public must understand. People make wild allegations, and when it comes to providing evidence, then they chicken out.
How do you deal with the criticism that you should be more proactive, like even the SML case when Manasseh came out with it? Like Yoko should have been the first to investigate
it. We take them in good faith, and we always learn. We take them in good faith. When somebody says you should have done this, you look at what the person is telling you, and if you think that is what you should have done, you learn from it, and next time you adjust your strategies, and then you move on and you become a better person.
Thank you so much, ma'am.